Hello and welcome to Samsung. In this video, I will talk about how to access the controller and the WAP via GUI and via the console connection. So let's get started. So these are the topics that I'm going to cover in this video. Console access, how to get console access on the 8500 and the 8050. The GUI access to the 8500, which is very simple. GUI access to the 8050 if you have a version before version 3.1, and then GUI access to the 8050 if you have a version after 3.1 or at 3.1. And then we'll talk about the console only access to apps. So apps don't have a GUI access, they only have console access. Let's get started. All right, so console access on the 8500 and 8050 is the same. This is all you would need on the right side if you are not familiar with working with routers or switches. Uh, this is the gear that you would be needing. There is a Cisco console cable. If you have one in your lab, that works perfectly fine. Uh, and then I believe that with the box that with the 8500 and 8050 we also send a console cable with it, so you can use that. But what is more important is for the most part your laptop might not have a DB9 connection, a DB9 female connection. So what you need is a DB9 female to a USB connector, the one that you can see here on the right side. And that plugs into your laptop. It comes with device drivers that you need to install, and that's the most important cable. So if you haven't gotten any yet, go on to like a Fry's or something, and they should have it available for probably like $20 to $30 or even less. Another thing that you need is a terminal software like PuTTY or I use you have Teraterm, PuTTY, or you can use Secure CRT if you have a licensed version of that. That's awesome. That's one of the best uh, terminal software to use. Alright, so console settings on the controller, on both the controllers, actually, even on the access point, is 115200 baud rate. Uh, the console port depends on which port you connect the serial cable to. You can actually find out your console port through through the control panel, through the device manager. So if you look for device manager here, you go here. I've right now plugged in the console cable to my laptop, so you can see ports, COM port. I'll tell you actually which COM port is active, and that's the COM port that you will suggest. So when you go to PuTTY, for instance, you can go here, PuTTY, and there's a serial connection here. And PuTTY is very simple. You go to putty.org and you can download it. It's a very lightweight software. And then you just come in here, you put in COM3 here, put in the value 115200 in the speed, and you can open the terminal. Right out of the box, the default username password on both the controllers is Samsung. So the first step that you will have to do always is you'll have to console in and change that password. Uh, The new password has to have, all these, it has to have a special character, it has to have an uppercase, and I believe it has to be more than 6 characters. So there are password restrictions, so you will have to, I mean, no matter what, you will have to open, right out of the box, you will have to console in, so that you can change the password right away. So once you've done that, let's say the Samsung password doesn't work for any reason. You can follow these steps to reset the password, and you can pause the video and you can look at the steps. They're pretty straightforward. You basically power cycle the box, and you at some point you have to enter the password to stop auto reboot. And at that point the password is Samsung. And then once you do that, the command prompt will appear which says Octeon 8500, and you just enter reset password word over there. And then again, at this point, the controller will reboot, and the default password would be Samsung at that point. So this is an optional step just in case when you console in and the password doesn't work. So all right, so GUI access to 8500. Now, assuming that you've gone through the first step, which is consoling into the controller and making sure that you've changed the password, 8500 is very simple to access via GUI. There is a dedicated management port. The default IP address of this port is 192.168.1.2. So all you have to do now is assign a static IP of 192.168.1.10, I believe, or you could use anything. Use a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. You don't need to assign any default gateway or DNS. You're just trying to access the GUI at this point. Connect the laptop to the management port, open up a browser and type 192.168.1.2, and it'll ask you for a username password. And at that point, you're going to enter a username, Samsung, and a password that you created. Now, there are ways to add accounts that if you don't want a Samsung account, obviously it's very obvious. Like if it is like it's like getting a Cisco router and the default password is Cisco. Everybody knows that. So you what you do is there are ways to create more accounts and assign whether it's a lobby admin or whether it's a operator or if it's a administrator. So you can create those accounts from the GUI. But the Samsung account, the initial account is an admin account. So, all right, now 8500 is simple, but 8050 is a little different. And the way it is different is because it doesn't have a management port per se. There is, you will have to console into the 8050, as we showed before, and then create a new password. And then this configuration needs to be applied to the 8050, assuming that your version is less than 3.1. So the way to find your version is to do a show version command, and I can show it to you here. So let me log into one of my controllers, which is in the cloud right now. So hang on, let's log into my controller here. Okay, so I'm logging into my controller, and to check the version, you do a show version command. And right now I'm on 318, as you can see, but you can if you're below 3.1, more than likely if you're on a 2.3.8 code or 2.4.19, whatever that is, you will have to go in and put in these commands. So basically what you're doing here is just going into one of the ports and assigning it like a management IP address. So you go to interface gigi 4. You don't know switch port because by default all ports are switch ports in case of the controller, and then you assign the IP address. At that point, you have a management port ready to go. You go in, assign your laptop, again the same thing, assign your laptop an IP address of 192.168.1.10, subnet mask 255.255.255.0, and you follow the same process. And this is the IP address that you are going to enter, and boom, you get GUI access. Now, what happened in versions 3.1 and higher was that we dedicated Gigi 4 as a management port. So right out of the box, all you do is connect your laptop to Gigi 4, and it will give you an IP address. And you'll get an IP address with, I think it's a 192.168.1.0 range, and the default gateway will be 192.168.1.1. So you can just now access the GUI using that IP address. So it's made very simple. So you don't have to, you can skip the step of configuring that Gigi 4 as a the IP address on the Gigi 4 through the CLI. So that's what they've done after 3.1. So if you have a 3.1 code and higher, you don't have to follow the procedure in the past slide. All right. So WAPs, you can only console access to them. There is no there is no GUI per se for the WAPs. And again, the same procedure, the same baud rate. The thing to keep in mind is you may have to try it twice. You may have to try username password root Samsung. Again, this is for version 3.x below version 3.x, and if it is above, if that doesn't work, then try root sweep 12 with the tilde sign. Sweep is Samsung Wireless Enterprise Access Point, you know, and so this is for versions 3.x and higher. Now, at times the console access to the WAPs might not work if the WAP is actually, let's say you plug in the WAP and it's connected to a switch, and there is a controller connected to the same switch. We will talk about AP discovery later, but at that point there is a possibility that WAP would have already registered to the controller, or so once that happens, by default the console access gets disabled. So we'll talk about that in detail later, but that is a possibility that might happen. But this is how you get console access to the WAP. So all right, so this was how you get access to the controller. A lot of times we get questions. How do you console in? What are the baud rates and stuff? So this video should definitely help understanding the first steps. Thank you very much.